Greetings, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. Today we're going to be talking about the Mobula7 O4. I've spent a ton of time with this thing since it came out a couple of months ago, and I've learned a bunch, and I would like to bring that to you so that you can make the best decision for a really cool O4 2S setup. I just flew a bunch more batteries with it. I had another plan for today's stream, but I flew a bunch more batteries with it today, and I realized, you know what? I haven't talked about this in a while, and I've been bouncing this back and forth between one frame and the next for a while. Different prop sizes, different all-up weights, and I thought, you know what? We need to dive back into it because it looks like the O4 stuff is coming back. The O4 lights are in stock in a bunch of places, and in theory that means that these bind and flies should be coming back. This is actually in stock over at Pyrodrone for $284, and so if you want to dive in, it's admittedly kind of annoying that Pyrodrone took down their affiliate program, but yeah, if you can wait, I bet you this will come back in stock at RDQ or Get FPV, and you can ding dong the Schnarfel affiliate program. But if you want to dive into this thing today, it is in stock at Pyrodrone, and then we're going to talk about what parts I think you should maybe get to make it a little bit better. Long and short of it is, the motors that it comes with are a little too low of a KV. They're completely fine. I've actually got an edit here on the channel flying this thing completely stock. And it flies really decent stock, but with a couple of super simple things and no soldering required, you can really wake this thing up. Essentially, slightly smaller, higher KV, but higher KV motors. The props that it comes with are actually awesome. The Gemfan biblades, but we're also going to talk about the Gemfan triblades. It comes with a regular old whip antenna, which, you know, for a couple of bucks, you can have a really nice upgrade that I sell over on my Etsy store. And those are the main things, to be completely honest. I'm going to be showing you a couple of tricks, though, how I mount my antenna for better signal strength, ELRS-wise. And I'm even going to plug it in, and you can copy my tune if you want. The tune that it comes with is totally fine, but mine might be a little bit better. I am primarily a cinematic pilot, and so if you want a tune that makes your footage look really good, I can help you out with that. A tune that's not going to be so razor's edge, that's going to kind of smooth out the harshness of your flying, and give you flight footage that makes you look like you're a better pilot than you actually are. We're also going to talk about a bunch of different batteries that I've run on this thing. And I think that about covers it. The hardware that this thing comes with is kind of perfect. M2 by, I think they're 12s. If you want longer hardware for even more strength in terms of the canopy and the frame itself, I've got you covered over on my Etsy store. I'm going to be dropping a bunch of links into the description of this video with a bunch of that stuff. I finally put the A86 day drift edit up yesterday, and it reminded me that my descriptions are old and moldy. And hey, easy, fella, easy YouTube commercials. And so in that description field, I've got a bunch of good stuff that I'm going to be putting into this description field. I'm actually doing that right now so that I don't forget. I just need to click here, edit, and then the build. There we go. And so yeah, there's a link to the Micro V. There's a link to the M1.2 by 14 screws for a little bit more strength. And then I'm going to add some more stuff up here. A link to the build, a link to some extra propellers, some of the batteries, all that good stuff. But I just wanted to leave myself a little reminder there. DJI O4 Lite air unit. Yeah, I might as well throw a link to the O4 air unit in there in case you could do this build. You could piecemeal this together if you really wanted to. I don't think you should, but you certainly could. But don't do that. Don't do it. I'm going to do another live stream talking about the ultimate O4 1.6 inch prop build. This is a 1.8 inch prop setup. This frame is actually great, though. You could make a pretty strong argument for this frame being better than the Mobula7 V3 and V4 frame, which would make this setup kind of better. It's a little bit heavier, though. These O4 2S builds are really, really interesting. You can do them in 1.6 inch prop with a Mobula7 V3 or V4 frame. You can do them in a 1.8 inch prop, which is basically just buying this bind and fly, Mobula7 O4. Or you can move it up to a 2-inch frame, the Mobula 8 frame, and do a 2-inch propeller. The Mobula7 O4 is an incredible starting point. you could actually take this exact bind and fly, just buy a Mobula 8 frame, and run it with the motors that it comes with. Doing that kind of sort of fixes the problem of the motors that it comes with, 1102 10,000 kV being a little bit too low of a kV. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What I did when I went up to the Mobula 8 frame and 2-inch props is I moved up to the Happy Model 1103 11,000 kV motors, and good God, that thing is a beast. There's going to be another live stream talking about that one, where we kind of dive into it. But I wanted to get us started here with the Mobula7 O4. If you wanted to have something that's sort of in between, right? Like, I'm going to have two different builds. I'm going to take the center section of this build, so the AIO, the VTX camera, canopy setup, and the antenna. And I'm actually, after this live stream, I'm going to take the whole center section of this out, and I'm going to drop it into the Mobula 8 frame with the 1103 motors. This bind and fly is set up with XT30, and the XT30 batteries are a little bit heavier than the BT 3.0 batteries that I use on my 1.6-inch prop version of this build. If you're not as insane as I am, and you don't want to have a 1.6-inch build and then a 2-inch build, arguably this is where you want to be. Again, this frame is better than the 1.6-inch prop frames. Not by much, but by a little bit. You could actually kind of argue that this frame is better than the Mobula 8 frame, because the Mobula 8 frame is a little bit weak. You can't crash this thing super hard. So this is awesome. Like, this rig is absolutely amazing. It feels weird that I'm going to pull this apart. But I want more power. I want more power and more weight from the 2-inch setup. And then I want less weight with the 1.6-inch prop setup than this. And so I'm sacrificing arguably the best of the frames, which is this Mobula7 O4 frame. What's this frame called? M11? There's a name for this frame. Mobula7 O4 frame. Let's see how good Google is. M80. Sorry, M80. Yeah, this is arguably the best. Maybe not arguably. This is the best 2S Whoop frame. My only issues with it are for BT 3.0, the Mobula7 V3 frame is a little bit better, I think, because it allows you to run really short little battery cables, and the battery cables are kind of heavy. And then you tuck the BT 3.0 cable right into this ridiculous little spot that's not meant for it, but good Lord, it might as well be meant for it. Again, Mobula7 V3 frame, and it's just, boy, this little setup with the battery lead here is just amazing. And this is how you save max weight. This is a hey ho. This is a weird little build that I put together with this kind of cool Insta360 Go 2 carrying canopy. This setup is actually going to get pulled apart. This canopy has way too much up tilt. With less up tilt, there's going to be a bunch of duct in view. So this was a fun little adventure, but this is going to get pulled apart and put back as a just like an analog 2S freestyle 75mm rig. Super, super, super fun. But yeah, this is a cool little experiment. And this actually carries the Insta360 Go really well, but it's like 30-40 degrees of up tilt, so you're always going like really fast. And for a small rig to go really fast, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You build smaller rigs to go slowly, and to be ultra lightweight. And so to have this much up tilt, it doesn't, yeah, like I said, doesn't make much sense. But this was a fun little build to kind of fart around with. 1002, 18,000 kV motors, motor limited down a little bit. But yeah, man, this M80 frame is damn good. if you were to do this frame with BT 3.0 to save a little bit of weight over XT30, you would just leave the BT 3.0 lead hanging out here. And then, I really like these Tiny Whoop 300 mAh 2S batteries. They don't fit all that well in this M80 frame. They kind of move around, and I already have a wrap of tape around them. You could continue to wrap tape around these, but now they're going to start to get heavier, and you're going to lose the advantage of the BT 3.0 being really lightweight. The reason why the BT 3.0 batteries are so lightweight is because they don't have a balance lead hanging off, and that does make a difference. But again, in this M80 frame, they don't fit all that well. There are the BT 3.0 450 mAh batteries, and I guess they fit like a little bit better. Now they definitely fit better. They fit properly in here, even without a wrap of tape. But the 450 mAh 2S batteries are kind of too big. Like this build doesn't need this much milliamp. We're going to talk about batteries in a bit here. These are Flywoo 2S 420 mAh batteries, the weed number. And it gets over 4 minutes of runtime with these batteries. So it doesn't even really need this big of a battery. It would kind of be perfect with a 400 mAh battery. I haven't been able to find them. But so yeah, the M80 frame is in kind of like no man's land in a little bit. There's not, but again, it's the best of the frames. It's really strong. It doesn't, the ducts, the duct supports here are very aerodynamic. That's one of the only complaints about the Mobula7 V3 frame, is that for a little bit of extra strength, they doubled up the duct support here, and the frame is like indestructible, which is kind of cool. But this M80 frame has kind of been indestructible too, and there's less obstruction to the airflow down here, which absolutely matters. And so, my God, man, this thing as a bind and fly is just so good. But there's a couple little tweaks that we're going to talk about that really bring it to life that much more. Keeping it on XT30 is not a terrible idea because, again, there's a bunch of batteries that, there's a bunch of like 300, 350, and 420 mAh batteries that really work well that are XT30. You could absolutely convert those batteries to BT 3.0. It's not super easy though, because they've got, these batteries are set up for a separate XT30 and then a separate balance lead. Converting them to BT 3.0, you're basically just going to use the balance leads, and then what do you do with these? You just cut them off? To be honest, I would leave it. I would leave it XT30, just suck up the weight penalty. You can use your Vifly tooth stir charger to charge these XT30 batteries from the balance lead, and it's no big deal. It's got so much power that it doesn't seem to really care all that much about the extra couple grams of it being on the XT30 lead versus the BT 3.0. So yeah, in my opinion, leave the BT 3.0 for the ultra lightweight 2S 75 millimeter 1.6 inch prop builds, and then, but see, that right there is also why I'm taking this thing out of this frame. Because that's me putting a couple 1S batteries in the charger. Maybe we'll fly at the end of the stream. We're not flying this. This is too big to fly inside the house. I forgot to mention. Well, I mean, you can absolutely fly this in the house. It's tough, and it's heavy enough and powerful enough to break a bunch of your roommates or significant others' stuff. So I don't really recommend flying this in the house, but you absolutely can. In a warehouse, this thing would absolutely shred. This would be so good in like a bigger indoor setting. But this is mainly like a garden ripper outdoor setup. What was I mentioning? I was talking about something right before I went on that rant. Well, no, I guess I kind of got to the end of the discussion about the battery. Oh, yeah, that's why I'm actually taking this out of this brilliant M80 frame and putting it into the Mobula 8 frame because I primarily fly this outside. The extra power and weight of this makes it handle the wind better, which sometimes you get wind outside. And yeah, I have the BT 3.0 set up. I want to use it. And so I did another build with regular 1.6 inch props, the Mobula7 V3 frame that perfectly holds the little BT 3.0 lead. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit smaller, and that allows it to be even more maneuverable outside. We're going to look at some of the flight footage, and I'm going to show you how maneuverable this thing is, and then you just have to use your imagination as to the 1.6 inch prop rig being even more maneuverable outside. A couple of housekeeping items. Go to CiottiFPV.com to support me if you like these live streams. As the US's economy gets driven into the goddamn dirt so that the top 1% can make that much more money. Those of us that create content, those of us that are kind of sort of artists, we're going to be the ones that get hit the hardest. So if you have a couple of extra dollars a month, that's really all it takes to support us. Head on over to CiottiFPV.com. There's a link to my Patreon. That's the absolute best way that you can support me. Change your bookmarks to all the different websites that I have affiliate links to over to my affiliate links. That's a totally free way to support me. Buy a t-shirt from my Etsy store, not my Etsy store, my Teespring store. Buy some stuff from my Etsy store. There's lots of good stuff over there, excuse me. If you're on the $3 a month tier, you might as well jump to the $5 a month tier. You'll get entered in the first Monday of every month to the Tiny Whoop and Toothpick giveaways. You don't even have to be on the live streams. You'll just get a package at some point at your door with like $50 worth of stuff. That covered that extra $2, didn't it? Right? How many months have to go by for you paying the extra $2 for $40, $50, $60 worth of stuff to kind of offset that, right? You might literally make money by going from the $3 to the $5 a month tier. Maybe not, but maybe. You can't win if you don't play, bro. Don't get addicted to gambling. And so yeah, there you go. That's how you support me. A couple of the new things that are coming to the Etsy store. I printed a whole bunch of these really cool little Tiny Whoop holders. They come with 3 different tops. 1S 300 mAh, 1S 450 mAh, and 2S. You can technically just use the 1S 300 mAh tops, but awesome little stands for your Tiny Whoops. Make them look cool when they're sitting on your shelf. You'll feel better. You'll feel cooler. I have 2 of these Weebleed 465 mAh 1S folded cell jousting batteries, BT 2.0, that I want to go to good homes. I don't want to. I really kind of can't sell these because Weebleed sent them to me to test. And so, yeah, 2 of you that are actually going to do an experiment with these or use these, buy something from my Etsy store and in the notes say, like, yo, I would love one of those 465 mAh batteries, and I'll throw it into the package for you. Weebleed sent me 4 of them. I'm keeping 1. I gave the other one to Jamie Flies FPV, and I want these 2 others to go to someone that's going to do something with them. I don't want them to just sit here on my desk. So, yeah, somebody buy something from my Etsy store, put a note in, say, yo, battery me, and I'll battery you. That's the majority of the things that I wanted to try to hawk to you. See what I did there? I said hawk to you. Get it? I apologize. That was bad. That was a good one. Fuck you if you think that was bad. That was a good one. That wasn't a planned one. The words came out of my mouth, and I was like, oh, that trashy bitch. Gross. Anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, where have you been? What hole have you been living in? It's a trashy bitch that went viral for talking about spitting on dicks. What kind of a world are we living in? What is happening with this plastic bag? I have rabies or something. I can't. There we go. I got it. Get out of here. Get in there. Okay, we're good. Hello, friends. How the hell are you? In the chat, Bad was first, the Bruce was next, Frank Nicholas, Spaceman Spiff, UCanFPV, Peter Clark, B-Bird, Whoop Fox, Uriel, Peter Clark again, UCanFPV again, Morton Upshot, Tamava, Phil Bradley, Monsoon Lock and Key, that's a very specific YouTube name. YouTube's being a piece of shit. Kazuma Drusen, what's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging. If you want to talk directly to me, type CiottiFPV into your chat comment. If you want to talk to somebody else, type their name. If you spell it right, for them, their own name will light up in orange, and they won't miss your chat message. Bad says, what's everybody working on today during CiottiFPV stream? I'm currently 3D designing parts for the garage refit. Nice. B-Bird says, funny that you chose this topic. My Mob7 O4 was flying horribly yesterday. It was shaking. Motors were hot. When I armed it on the bench, the motors seemed to be randomly stuttering. Check your props first. Check your motors next. Check for loose screws after that. Check for broken frame. Check to make sure that nothing's pushing up against the flight controller, essentially hard mounting it. Hopefully one of those things will fix the problem. UCanFPV says, just got done flying my O4 Meteor 75. Man, this thing's a blast. I'm blown away. Very cool. Whoop Fox says, happy you like the stuff. I did indeed, man. Thank you again. Super generous. Tamava says, how's the comparison between Goggles 2 and Integras? I'm using the Integras a whole bunch, and then I'm going to swap to the Goggles 2. So far, I like the Goggles 2 better. Having the adjustable IPD, well, both of them have IPD adjustment, but having the adjustable lenses, not having to put just one lens in there to correct your vision, yeah, is kind of nice. Not much of a difference, though, to be super honest. I used the Goggles 2 for a while, and then I switched over to the Integras. Barely any difference. I mean, I guess the little joystick on the Integras is better, but, like, yeah, it's really a toss-up between the two. The field of view difference it's not really noticeable. The big thing is, do you like the battery being on the back of your head, like the Goggles 3? And or do you like a separate battery versus nobody likes the stupid little Goggles 2 swipey panel, but it works, versus the little joystick on the Integras, which is the same as the Goggles 3. Where the battery sits and whether the battery is disconnectable, that's the reason to get one over the other. I guess you could argue that the Goggles 2 are nice, that they let you pull the antennas off and do aftermarket antennas, but like the antennas that come on these things are really, really good. So yeah, it's really splitting hairs. Whichever ones you can get a better deal on, or if you're dead set on having a separate battery versus the battery on the back of your head. Yeah, they're both really good. You're not gonna, if you buy one over the other, you're not gonna be like, damn. So yeah, it's I had a feeling it was gonna be this way. I had a feeling the differences were gonna be so subtle that it doesn't really matter. For me, I think I'm gonna go with the Goggles 2 because because when I fly somewhere for a gig, the Goggles 2 can live in my bag, and I won't have to rip my bag apart for TSA because they won't have a battery connected to them. So for me, I think the Goggles 2 are going to win just for that seemingly insane idea. They are also a little bit smaller, so they do fit in your bag a little bit better. The Integras are pretty small, though. You take the battery, just like the Goggles 3, you just take the battery, and you just rotate it like this, and it sits there really nicely. But the Goggles 2 are legitimately smaller. Even when you do this with the Integras, they are absolutely bigger. And that does matter. You know, the battery on the back of your head thing, it's a big fucking battery. Having one or two smaller batteries that you keep charged, is going to save you space and weight. And, you know, I'm an old school FPV donkey. Smaller batteries are kind of my jam. So, but again, you get either one of them and you'll absolutely love them. Uriel says, you're the best. Thank you, dude. You Can FPV says, sick O4 drift at it too. I've watched it like 20 times. Thank you, man. Thank you for supporting the algorithm. Very cool of you. I hope you all enjoyed. Morton Upshot says, my Snail 75 is also on 2S now. 1S was cool for building dives, but not so good for low altitude flying. I'm using the same motors as when it was 1S. Yeah, man, 2S is pretty magic for flying outside. The improvement in response time that you get is insane. And then to come along with that, you get a bunch more power. There's a bunch more motor options and a bunch more efficiency. And so for flying outside, 1S is tough. To me, 1S is for flying inside, and then 2S is for flying outside. The new Weebleed FPV Mo tree toppers are really, really good, and they're about as good as you're going to get with 1S. But boy, 2S is a massive leap in improvement. Phil Bradley forgot to tag me, but he asked a great question. He says, is it possible to convert a Mobula7 analog to O4 lite? Anything's possible, but the Mobula7 analog has an analog VTX built in. You're then going to put an external HD VTX on there. And so, it's a waste of complexity and it's a waste of weight, right? You've got a rig with 2 VTXs on board. B, you got to figure out a way to turn off the VTX. You can't have the analog VTX banging away and then the HD VTX banging away. It's just not going to work. So you're going to have to figure out whether or not there's a resistor or a capacitor that you can knock off of that AIO, or sometimes they'll put a solder bridge in there. They'll put 2 pads next to each other and they'll bridge them with solder. And if you break that solder bridge, it will turn off the VTX. I don't know if that's the case on the Mobula7 analog, but that's what you would absolutely need to do. You would need to figure out a way to turn off, and you can't do this in Betaflight, the analog VTX. I guess you could put it into pit mode in Betaflight, but really you need to turn it off. And so, yeah, there you go. Uriel says, that's what she said. I wonder what I said to spawn that one. Denzel the Turtle says, I just got paid. What should I buy? Boy. That's a tough one. There's so much good stuff. Maybe if you don't have an O4 2S outdoor tiny whoop, you should buy what I'm about to tell you all about. So I'm caught up on chat. Hold on. All right, I'm caught up on chat. Let's dive in. Hold on. I had a couple. Hold on. 1103, 11,000s. I got 2 extra of these because I think I might have banged up 1 or 2 of the motors. Let me just throw these in here. For the record, if you do this and you move it over to the Mobula7 frame, Brain 3D sells a really nice but admittedly giant and kind of heavy canopy that will work with the Mobula7. It's kind of cool. It actually connects to the outer holes in the Mobula7 frame. These holes out here. It jacks down into those instead of using the inner flight controller stack holes. So that's kind of slick. That's going to be ridiculously durable because the canopy is not putting any stress on the little posts that the rubber grommets ride along on. And yeah, that's pretty slick. I don't know what hardware you would use, but you'll figure it out. It looks like you maybe use like a little nut on the bottom. But yeah, Brain 3D, one of my sponsors, has this awesome canopy. It's meant for the O4 Lite. You're going to crank the O4 light top and bottom in right there. It's got a nice little spot for an antenna, super roomy in there, and it also gives you some space. See, the front is slotted there, so that's going to allow you to adjust the up tilt up and down. Pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so my extra motors are here. What is this? Did I buy extra? Apparently I got some... Oh, that's right. No, they sent me an extra set of the 1102 10,000s. That's right. Because I blew up one of the motors that this thing came with. I crashed the living shit out of this when I first got it, and I broke one of the motors. And I then I mentioned that to them. I mentioned that to Happy Model, and they very kindly sent me a replacement set of the 1102 10,000s. At that point, I had already moved to different motors. So let's talk about motors on the Mobula7 O4. It comes with Happy Model 1102 10,000 kV motors. These motors jam. They make plenty of power. Again, there's an edit on my channel flying this thing around when I first got it with these motors and these props, and it's got plenty of power. The runtime is even better than the current setup that I have. And so if you're going for runtime, or you want to keep it a little bit lighter because these motors are not going to hit the batteries as hard as the motors that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with the motors that this thing comes with. For me, I wanted a little bit more power, a little bit more RPM. One of the ways that you can get more power out of it with the motors that it comes with are to go over to the HQ tri-blades, the HQ 1.8 inch tri-blade ultralight props. They are called 45 millimeter by 3. They're great. They work really, really well, and they wake these motors up even more because these motors are only 10,000 kV on these biblades. They get mad runtime, but they lack a little bit of power. So if you're going to get a Mobula7 O4 and just leave it the hell alone, the propellers that it comes with, the biblades, are great for runtime. And then snag yourself a set of the tri-blades. I will put a link to these tri-blades in the description of the live stream here. You might as well snag a set of these tri-blades just to have them. Buy a couple of sets. And if you want more power, put these tri-blades on. If you want more runtime, run the biblades. Since we're talking about props, we'll dive into motors in a second. Since we're talking about props, there is also going to be a difference in the grip level between biblades and tri-blades. As always, biblades are going to be a little bit more slippery. Tri-blades are going to have a little bit more grip. When you tune a fish, no, when you turn a quad, right now, if it's flying like this, really slow, the number of blades that the propellers have don't matter because you can't see them. If it's flying just like this, straight towards the camera, there's no difference. But as soon as this happens, or this happens, or this happens, now that you can see the blades, how many blades there are is going to change how this thing performs from a grip standpoint. And so you start flying forward. In normal forward flight, it doesn't really matter because they're just producing thrust. But if you're in normal forward flight and you kill the throttle, the biblades are going to keep going because there's less obstruction. Tri-blades are going to slow down more. And so that's how it's going to work when you're cruising forwards and you chop the throttle. That's also how it's going to work when you turn. Now that you can see the propeller, you got a bunch of forward momentum straight towards the camera, and then you turn 90 degrees. How many blades there are is going to be how much drift. With the biblades, it's going to be a little bit more slippery. It's going to just slide, 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 and then it's going to grip. Unless you really stand it up like this and blip the throttle. If you've got a bunch of momentum, you stand it up here, you hammer the throttle, it's going to kill that momentum, it's going to turn 90 degrees really sharp. That's like a racy way of flying, right? In order to do that, you are really rolling this thing over. And so your horizon line goes way off to the side. And that's what racers do. That is a less cinematic flying style. If you want to fly cinematic, you want to fly flat. And so when you turn, you're going to turn flat. And how many blades the propellers have are going to have an effect when you turn flat as to how long this thing keeps going straight before it digs in and goes sideways. And so that's the other difference between biblades and triblades. Triblades are more grippy. They go where it's pointed. Biblades are more slippery. If you're flying this thing outside, the biblades are fine. Yes, they're a little bit more slippery, but you're flying outside, the gaps are really big compared to inside, and you don't really notice a difference. You don't notice much of a difference. There goes the Canon software shitting its pants for no effing reason. Hold on. Oh man, I need to just suck it up and spend a few $100s on a new camera, because evidently Canon is never going to fix this software. I can absolutely not believe that this software worked totally fine for years, and now it doesn't, and they don't seem to care about fixing it. It's just insane to me. So yeah, for flying this thing outside, the biblades are totally fine, but the stock motors that it comes with don't make quite enough power for me personally on the biblades. And so the triblades really fix that. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, right? The triblades, I actually don't like the flight performance as much as the biblades, but on the stock motors, they make the extra power. So on the stock motors, I actually like this thing on the triblades, and then it's a little bit more grippy. Oh well. The ultimate combo for me, though, is to put higher KV, higher RPM motors on, and that allows you to run the biblades, which are, and you get the extra power because of the higher KV, but then you get to run the biblades that are a little bit more slippery, and they're also lighter weight. That's the third. There's like a triangle of performance that happens with different propellers. How grippy and how slidey are they? How much power do they make? And then how lightweight are they? The reason why the weight of the propellers matters is because your rotating assembly has to speed up and slow down like 4,000 times a second, or 3,000 times a second, or 8,000 times a second. Whatever your PID loop frequency is set at, 3.2K, 4K, 8K, that's how many times the PID loop is asking the gyro, yo, what's going on, bro? And if the quad is doing this, the gyro is going to be like, yo, I'm going one way. Yo, I'm going the other way. Yo, I'm going back the other way. And the PID loop is going to speed up or slow down the motors to try to stop this nonsense. And so you dip back into prop wash, and the response time of your rotating assembly is super important. The lighter your rotating assembly is, the quicker and easier the PID loop's job is going to be in terms of speeding up and slowing down the motors to try to eat this bad behavior. Also, when you hammer the throttle, it's got to spin these props. The rotating assembly has to spin up. It has to speed up. And so when you're quick on the throttle, a lighter weight rotating assembly, it just feels better. We call it response time. And so the less blades, the better the response time. And I really like the response time on these biblades. They are significantly lighter weight than the triblades. And so the biggest part of the formula here towards the ultimate Mobula7 O4 is a higher KV motor. And the right KV is 14,000. If you get close to that, if you find a 13,000 or a 15,000, you're going to be totally fine. There are a bunch of 18,000 kV 1002s, 1102s. That's a little too high. You can absolutely motor limit down to like 80% or 70% and tame those 18,000 kV motors, but it's always better to run less of a motor limit. And there are a few 14,000 kV motors where you don't really need to run any motor limit. And that's always going to be a little bit of a better situation. Technically, you might want to run like 95%, 90% motor limit. The motor limiting is in the PIDs tab in Betaflight, by the way. You can also get to it in the OSD by just pitch forward, yaw left, and then you go to profile, and then I believe it's in MISC PP, and then you scroll all the way down to the second screen, and it's motor output percentage or motor output limit in there. And so, yeah, 14,000 kV motors are mega on this rig. That's what this has on it right now. At some point, somebody donated, it was Kevin Sumner, I believe. He donated an iFlight Defender 1.6, and that rig had, so I stole the O3 air unit out of it for the Quadmilla Siren F3 3-inch rig. And then I stole the motors off of it, which are 1002 14,000 kV. You could probably find these iFlight Defender 1002 14,000 kV motors somewhere, but they're going to be hard to find. RC and Power makes a 1002 14,000 kV motor. At the moment, it's in stock at Race Day Quads. I'm going to put the link down in the description. I'm going to put an affiliate link down in the description. They make them in ugly-ass orange. I don't like orange, but if you like orange, you'll love them. They make them in orange. They also do make those motors in light blue and pink, which is such a cool color combo. But they're out of stock everywhere at the moment. Hopefully they come back in stock, but you never know with FPV stuff, right? It might never, ever, ever come back in stock. Those are the motors that I would recommend. These iFlight 1002 14,000s are insane. RC and Power usually makes motors that are a little bit better, so they'll probably be even better. I really love these though. That motor size 1002 and 14,000 kV is just amazing. 1102 is totally fine as well, but the 1002s are ever so slightly lighter, and you know, a little bit more runtime, a little bit more agile when you reduce the weight. But if you can find a 1002 or 1102 in 13,000, 14,000, or 15,000 kV, that is going to be the perfect motor for this build. It'll let you run the biblades. You can also run the tri-blades, but you're going to really like the biblades. They're so lightweight. They're a little bit more slidey outside, so you can do some of like the bigger moves, like the more momentum-based kind of moves where you're off throttle throwing it around. It still has plenty of grip for ducking in and out of your garden or tiny little gaps and whatnot, and it's just awesome. Talked about props, talked about motors. Hold on. I have a whole bunch of these 1102 10,000s now. Gotta find a good home for these. I might do like, I'll use these on some kind of a toothpick build. Spin like a really lightweight 2.5-inch prop with these. All right. There we go. Getting organized while live streaming. Who'd ever thunk it? Again, the propellers that you want are going to be the HQ Ultralight 45mm by 3s, or the biblades 1.5mm motor shaft, and then yeah, you'll be good to go. Let me check something super quick. So that I've seen these props with two different names. I've seen them called 45mm by 3. I've also seen them called 1.8 by what is it, 1.0? 1810, yeah. So these propellers might be called 45 millimeter by 3 PC 1.5 millimeter. The 1.5 millimeter refers to the hole in the center. I've also seen them called, and they're stamped right on them, 1810, 1810, 1.8 inches, 10 pitch. So yeah, don't let that throw you off. Want to hear something that could throw you off? HQ also makes a Defender 16 prop for that iFlight Defender build, which is an 1809. I think you can only buy these props from iFlight. It is the tiniest little bit less pitchy. Don't buy these props. Buy the regular. All it'll do is confuse you. Buy the regular 45 millimeter by 3 HQ ultralight props that are 1 pitch, 1.0 pitch. Those are the ones you want. If you're going to stick with the lower KV setup, get those well, no matter what, get those tri-blades, because it's worth it to have a set or two of them. But the biblades are really the way to go. To build the ultimate Mobula7 O4, you got to go to the biblades. They are... It's just the response time, man. Like, you hammer the throttle, or when it sits down into prop wash, it just eats it like immediately. It's really impressive. Those props in tandem with the higher KV motors is just so good. My God, it's really, really amazing what that combo will do for you. And so do it, man. You deserve it. You deserve that ultra quick response time. Hey, also the canopy that the Mobula7 O4 comes with is really good. But I have broken one O4 light camera that was in this canopy. Boy, did I pound the shit out of it, though, before that happened. Also, I at some point messaged Happy Model. I was like, yo, your Mobula7 O4 is damn near perfect. The only thing that could make it perfecter is if you had a version of the canopy with a little bayonet mount on the front, so that we could use Flywoo's filters. Flywoo makes a little housing. That's not the right button. They make this little, in this case it's purple housing. When you buy the housing, they sell it to you in black, yellow, and red. But yeah, they make this little housing, and the housing has what's called a bayonet mount up on the front. You can kind of see it there. It's just, no, you can't, because this camera sucks a bag of dicks. Well, you can see the out of focus raised edge. There you go. You see there's like little slots on that. Well, no, it's back out of focus. There's a little raised edge. So there's a lip around the front, and then there's these little panels, front, left, right, and bottom. It's just a little raised edge. And then on the ND filter, you put a little recess. You put a little raised edge on that, and then you put little recesses. And so you put the filter onto the bayonet mount, and you turn it 45 degrees, and it's locked in there. Happy Model now makes a canopy with a bayonet mount in it. It's also adjustable up tilt, which is kind of slick. And so, yeah, you can get a Happy Model molded canopy with that in there. Or there are a couple of 3D printed canopies that work with the Flywoo camera body. Not camera body, but little, like, I don't know, mount that you put the camera into, and then you can run ND filters. The molded mount from Happy Model is going to be stronger and lighter than any of these TPU canopies. And so that's really the way to go. I think you can only buy that canopy right now on AliExpress. I'm patiently waiting for that canopy to come to a US store so that I don't have to deal with, you know, American fascism tariff bullshit. But I digress. I've been running it with the canopy that it originally came with, and it's really good. This one's taken a ton of abuse, and it's completely fine. But yeah, there you go. I almost forgot to talk about batteries. There are a bunch of different battery options. The ones that I've been running are these GNB 2S300s. I've got this Emax 2S350. Both of these batteries did not come with XT30s. They came with, I think, PH 2.0, which is absolutely insane. So I cut that off and I soldered on XT30s. Not very difficult. This Flywoo 2S420 mAh battery is my favorite. I wish it was a little bit lighter, and I wish it was only 400 mAh, but goddamn, you hammer the throttle and it just gives you tons of power. These 300s and 350s will sag a little bit, but the runtime is about perfect. I get like 2 minutes and 40 seconds out of the little 300s. I get a little over 3 minutes out of the 350, which is absolutely perfect. But again, the Flywoo 420, it really resists sag better. It just has a little bit extra runtime. I don't need over 4 minutes of runtime, and that's usually what I get on this. So the runtime is a bit much, but it is awesome that it just doesn't sag. It's the higher the mAh is on the battery, the less sag that it's going to have. There are a bunch of batteries available, though. I just really quickly dropped into the 2S battery section of race day quads. And so you've got a 350, which does have the XT30 lead, so you don't have to screw around with that. There is a 450, but again, that's awful big. That's going to be like a cruising battery. Don't crash it with this heavy of a battery. It's gonna hit the ground like a ton of bricks. Here's the 300, but it's got the PH 2.0 connector, so you're gonna have to remove that. This is almost certainly the exact same thing as the Emax 300 that I've got here. So you're gonna have to cut this PH 2.0 lead off and solder on an XT30. I don't necessarily recommend this 300 mAh battery. Just get this 350. You want the little bit of extra runtime on it, and it's going to resist sag a little bit better. And then I thought there was one more battery in here that was kind of interesting. Oh, here you go. Here's a 300 with the XT30 on it. So if you're really desperate to keep the weight down, here you go. GNB hooks you up. Well, this is sold out. This is the 300 again with XT30, but it is sold out. The rest of these are sold out. Where I thought maybe the Flywoo battery was on here. Flywoo 2S420. Who sells that? Is it oh, is it CiottiFPV? Hey, look at that. It is out of stock though. At some point, hopefully it'll come back in stock. I was hoping maybe Pyrodrone sells it as well. I mean, obviously you can get it on the Flywoo website. $20 for 2 is a great deal. Anybody else that has it? I don't think so. Wait, race. Nope, these are the 450s. 550, 750. Yeah, bit of a hard to find battery, but it's a really good one. Are there any 2S 400 mAh batteries? Nah, it goes all the way up to 450. Unless Amazon has something? Nah, don't get these. That's nonsense. So yeah, sort of in between on the batteries. 2S 350 if you want to be lightweight. Flywoo 2S 420 if you can get your hands on a set. Hopefully FPV gets them back in stock because it's yeah, a little tiny bit heavier than I would like, but I like it a little bit better than the 350. Just because it delivers more voltage throughout the life of the battery. Let me get caught up on chat a little bit. FPV says, have you tried the Flywoo wide angle 404? I need a canopy for mine. I have not. I hate the idea of putting a lens in front of a lens. It's also quite heavy, and the problem I'm going to have with it is when I smash into something nose first, it's going to come flying off and explode. The field of view on the O4 Lite doesn't bother me for whatever reason. It's super linear, which I really like from like a cinematic kind of standpoint. And yeah, it's fine. And so I'm not going to do that Flywoo wide angle thing. The O4 Lite is not a cinematic solution. It is for really good looking freestyle. And so I'm not going to bolt a bunch of shit onto it to make it less freestyleable, right? Like that wide angle lens thing is weird because like we don't want that wide angle in cinematic usage. We want it in freestyle, but then it's fragile. There's not a great way to mount it, and it's extra weight, right? So it's in this weird middle ground where like it only kind of makes sense for freestyle, but then in other ways it only kind of makes sense for cinematic. So it's not my deal. I also, again, I hate putting a lens in front of a lens. When you do that, you run into like really weird aberrations of like, especially like with lens flare. Like you'll have double lens flare, and it's yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I get it. It's cool that it exists, but it's not for me. B-Bird says, do you rely on motor limiting to keep the motors from becoming damaged, or is it just for better control? It's mainly because the perfect motor option doesn't exist in a lot of cases. We will have motors that are either too high or too low of a kV. And too low of a kV means you never have enough power, and that sucks. Too high of a kV means you can have the exact amount of power that you want, but you sacrifice a little bit of efficiency. I would always rather have a motor that's a little bit too high of a kV and then have to motor limit it down a little bit than too low of a kV. Jesus, losing my voice. Danzilla Terrible says, those RC and Power oranges are the best looking motors. You shut your mouth. Danzilla likes the color orange. Whoopbox says, doing a Weebleed order, what's your 1mm biblade 31mm prop you like? I got some biblades for 1.5mm shaft motors and been happy with them. 1mm propellers, you want HQ 1.2 by 0.9 by 3s. You want 1.2 by 1.2 by 2s. And you want, well, those are the best. Those two props are the best 1mm. I like the tri-blades better, but the biblades are kind of fun. They're just a little slippery for flying around inside the house. The tri-blades have that little bit extra grip. And yeah, they're my favorites at the moment. 1.2 by 0.9 by 3. Phil Bradley says, currently trying to fix a Mobula7 XM. Motors are fine in Betaflight, but barely gets off the ground when throttle up. Random motors seem to twitch and lose power. Any ideas why? There are about 18 things that could be wrong, dude. The troubleshooting these things is pretty difficult. You know, I have a Fiverr setup where you can buy a half an hour or an hour of my time. A troubleshoot like that with those problems that you're talking about, that would probably take about a half an hour. But the best way to troubleshoot FPV in general is outside in. You blame the propellers first. Maybe your props are beat up. Maybe they're out of balance right out of the box. And so you take all of your propellers off and you put a fresh set of props on that are different. For tiny whoops, HQ propellers are typically the best balanced, and that's super important. So propellers first. Next, you want to check your motors. Make sure that your motors aren't beat up or the motor shafts aren't bent. Take the propellers off, spin the motors very slowly in Betaflight. Put your fingernail against the motor shaft. If it's bent, you'll feel it on your fingernail. You don't want that. You want it to be nice and straight. Check all 4 motors. You can also, with a tiny whoop, just spin the motors up slowly in the turtle mode tab while you're holding it. In turtle mode while you're holding it. Spin motor 1 up really slowly, motor 2, motor 3, motor 4. If one motor and prop is vibrating harder, either the prop is banged up or the motor is banged up. Again, outside in. Props first, motors next. Now you're going to check the frame to make sure it's not broken. Make sure you don't have any screws that are backing out. And then all the way in is the flight controller. Make sure that the flight controller is on the rubber grommets and it can move a little bit. You don't want something pushed up against that AIO, hard mounting it. The frame, the props, the motors are always going to vibrate. And so your flight controller with the really sensitive gyro on it needs to kind of float. That's why we put rubber grommets, rubber gummies on there. And so you don't want anything pushed up against that flight controller. You want that flight controller to be loose and floating a little bit. But you do want to make sure that your screws are tight enough. You don't want it to be able to really wobble around. There's kind of a middle ground. If you've got one motor that's acting funny, take that motor and take another motor and swap them. And see if the behavior chases the motor, in which case the motor is the problem, or if it stays on the same channel, which means that that ESC channel is the problem. There you go. There's a whole bunch of stuff for you to check. Outside of that, we would have to really dive into it. The biggest way to troubleshoot is to ask yourself what the hell happened right before this behavior started. Were you fucking around with Betaflight? In which case you broke it. Did you slam it into a tree? That's physical damage. Right? Like, when the problems began is the most important part of the troubleshoot. And it almost always tells you exactly what happened. Did you update Betaflight? There's your problem. Stop updating Betaflight. The only reason to update Betaflight if there's some crazy new feature that you're desperate for. The tuning side of Betaflight has not changed much since 4.2, 3 or 4 years ago. Stop updating Betaflight, everybody. It's almost always a bad idea, and there's almost always nothing in the new version of Betaflight that's going to help you out. And a lot of times when you update Betaflight, you forget to back up, and you lose the custom tune that was on that rig, and that can completely screw it up. So, yeah. What happened right before the behavior started is the most important point of part of any troubleshoot. If you want to book a half an hour of my time, I'm more than welcome to jump on a Discord call with you, and we can dive in further. But this is the best I can do for you in 10 minutes on a live stream to help you troubleshoot it. Troubleshooting these things is very difficult. The Ends of the Turbo says, why not BT3? Why the XT30? I talked about that 45 minutes ago. A feel says, I've been frying a lot in the sim. I've run into problems with my thumb on the left stick. My skin has thinned out and the spike stick actually start to hurt too much to fly. Any tips? Thumb sticks that are not so aggressive, or just fly less. Those are it. Really, thumbsticks that are less aggressive, or you can just take a little file and just file down the razor sharp points on your existing thumbstick. We talked about batteries, we talked about motors, we talked about props. Let's take a look at some flight footage. So this was flown earlier today. I should have been playing this while I've been talking through some of this stuff. I'm going to play this directly off of the Tiny Whoop. So that I was going to test the different propellers, but the biblades were so good that I just stuck with them. And then I'll show you guys my tune. The tune that it comes with is totally fine though. So I'd run this battery down a little bit. This is the 2S 420 mAh battery from Flywoo. This is me just kind of whopping it around to see where the tune was at. The tune that I have on it right now is not super aggressive. I like doing that though because it prevents you from having this thing that like every time you crash it, the tune becomes overactive and you have to like land it and back the tune off. That's just kind of silly. This tune is plenty. The flight characteristics are great. There's only prop wash if you really, really, really sit it perfectly down into it. As you can see, even in the middle of the day, there's really no jello. We're going to talk about camera settings also in a little bit. Let me actually pull the SD card out of the... Wait, I already did. Look at me. Oh, wait, you're looking at the fucking SD card footage. Okay. So yeah, this is the SD card footage. This is kind of perfect. You can take a look at the throttle value and the runtime and all this jazz around the outside. Why did I want to... I want to show you the camera settings, the O4 camera settings that worked really well for this to not give us jello. Jello is primarily caused by too much light getting into the sensor, and then you go with too high of a shutter speed because of that. There are ways around it. An ND filter is the best way around it, but this rig does not currently have one. So I'm going to show you the settings that are probably going to work best for you in broad daylight. Hopefully I pulled the those settings up and down. Otherwise I'll just jump into the camera, jump into the goggles and tell you what they are. As you can see there, I was just ripping around the garden. Those are tiny little gaps there that I was absolutely able to navigate. You know, I mean, I've flown out in the front yard quite a bit. I'm a half decent pilot, so I can't guarantee you that you'll be able to rip through your garden quite that good, but the rig will do it, okay? The rig will absolutely handle that. It's light enough, it's grippy enough where you know, if you put in enough time and effort on the sticks, you can absolutely shred in tiny little spaces there. It's also got enough power to do some of this bigger stuff, right? Some of these big giant power loops, these big dives. The dive performance is great. At the bottom of that dive, it pulls out with no problem whatsoever. It's got a nice amount of float there. You can do, like, you know, turn the gravity off kind of stuff like that. And now we're coming in at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Air mode is on a switch, so I'm able to just pull that off there and get it off the window. That was kind of cool. Battery's still got a little bit more jam in it. Again, this is actually a battery that I flew for like 15-20 seconds before this flight, so this is actually over 4 minutes flying around like this. I wasn't doing a lot of like super full throttle throws up over the house, but I did a bunch. Kind of mixed flying. There it is. 4 minutes and 2 seconds. 4 minutes and 3 seconds. The battery is bouncing back up. Let me see if... So yeah, here's the tiny little flight that I did. I'm not gonna have the camera settings, am I? Damn it. Well, the O4 is kind of powered up. Will it connect to the goggles when it's being powered by USB? I don't think so, but it's worth a shot. Otherwise, I am going to plug a battery into it to give you my settings. So there you go, 19 seconds. So there was an additional 19 seconds, which would bring the that would bring the runtime to 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That's kind of weird that we basically get a second per milliamp on these 2S rigs if you fly them like I was just flying them. So that was the DVR from the goggles. Now we're gonna take a quick look at the onboard. Let me do this though. Let me actually copy. I'm gonna copy the onboard flight footage over so that while I'm playing this, oh my god, that's 9.3 gigs of footage. That's a bit much. That's gonna take 5 minutes. That's too much. Let me stop this. Hold on. I'm gonna stop this. Let me play some more of the goggle footage, and then we'll because I wanna unplug this thing and power it up and tell you what my O4 lite settings are. So let's go back into the goggle footage. That's got the OSD and shit on it, so you can like see what throttle percentage I'm at any given point. So let me play through a little bit more of this. So now I'm on the second battery. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, farts. Hold on. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, wait, no, we're fine. We're fine. I thought I just lost my place with the... I'm continuing to play the Castle Crash flight footage until I've played it all. But I forget that Inna opens 2 different windows. So this is now the 300 mAh battery, and I think this is the full 300 mAh battery. So this will give you an idea of the runtime to expect on a 2S300 with XT30. While this is playing, I'm going to put a battery onto this build. Goggles should still be powered up from a second ago. Yep. And I'm going to tell you what my O4 light settings are for this that work really well in this light that you're seeing here to not give you a whole bunch of jello. So, O4 light is connecting. And so I'm going to jump into... Well, I might as well give you everything. In transmission... broadcasting is off. Focus mode is off. Transmission power is on auto. I'm actually gonna change that. I'm gonna lock it at 200. Don't need. I'm gonna lock it at 400. How about that? Racing mode is turned off. Channel mode is manual. Bandwidth is on 20. I'm actually gonna pop that up to 40. The other option is 60, but that's a bit much. And then I'm gonna... Oh, wow, there's only 1 channel available when I do that. That's interesting. So it's locked on channel 1. In the settings menu, camera is set to 4:3, 4K 60, wide FOV, auto ISO limit 400, grid lines off, center point off. Advanced camera settings, we've got record with both. Camera view recording is turned on. Auto record on takeoff is turned off because I hate when it stops and starts the recording every single time you arm and disarm. If you do the auto record on takeoff, you need to arm the quad and then hit record in your goggles. Otherwise, it will only record on the goggles. If the quad is armed and then you hit the record, it'll record both on board and on the goggles. That's a little trick there. Color is set to normal, because that's the only option. Sharpness -1, noise reduction -1. Anti-flicker auto, video subtitles, whatever. My display is set to brightness of 1. Air unit display scaling is 100. I kind of want to move that to 90, come to think of it. 100 is fine. Canvas mode is HD, flight controller Betaflight, and that's it. Now, pulling up from the bottom with these goggles. The mode is manual. You're just going to have to suck up that beeping. Here, I'll move it onto the floor. Mode is set to manual. ISO is set to auto. Shutter speed is set to auto, but it is limited to 1/60th. No, it's not. Look at that. I do have the shutter set to auto. I'll be damned. White balance is locked at 5500. Aspect ratio 4:3, video quality 4:60. I'll be damned. So I had the shutter set to auto. I didn't think that I did. That should have produced a bunch of jello. No, the shutter is set to auto. Huh. Well, let's talk about as it overheats and shuts down. Okay, so let's talk about that. Realistically, on a bright day, you're going to want to limit your ISO to 100. Yeah, I can actually see in this flight footage now that the shutter speed is going up pretty high. Is this still that same battery? This might be the next battery, which is another 300. So I think you're seeing 2 300 mAh batteries in a row. I'm just giving it a second here to adjust. The auto exposure algorithm on the O4 is pretty goddamn good. I'm pretty impressed by it. it adjusts pretty quickly and pretty accurately. So set your ISO, lock your ISO at 100. That is going to limit the amount of light there. You're not going to be able to lock your shutter speed at like 1/60th of a second. You're going to kind of have to run it at auto for bright daylight, and you might get a little bit of jello. If you start getting jello, change your props, run fresh props. That's the best thing that you can do to combat it. Run fresh motors. Make sure that your motors aren't banged up. Those two things are going to cause vibrations, so this is me losing a propeller. Okay, so I think that was the second battery, 05. 0005, let's see. Oh my god, it went through two batteries. 0005 is the 350 mAh battery. So you guys watched both of the 300 mAh batteries. I think the runtime was like 2 minutes and 50 seconds on both of those. And then that last one there was the 350, but it threw a propeller before I could run it all the way down. This battery was at like 3.8 something, a little bit above storage voltage when it threw that propeller. Let's look at that last battery though from the onboard. Let me plug this thing back in. So that was all goggle DVR 1080. We're now going to watch the onboard 4K 60. And this is probably where you're going to see some jello. Because 4K, the 1080 hides jello a little bit better, basically. It's still there, but the quality is not high enough that you really notice it. These live streams kind of wreck the image quality anyway, so I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but I'll probably be able to see some jello here. So you won't see it when I'm down here in the yard because things are kind of dark. You'll notice it when I go up high because the sky is very bright, and that makes the shutter speed up, and that's when you start to really notice jello. It is skipping because the computer is having a hard time pulling 4K footage off of the internal storage. In theory, though, I probably didn't cruise straight ahead long enough for you to really notice the jello. So this is now in 4K with no OSD. Obviously, this is the onboard DVR recording. For me, this looks incredible. I'm seeing this at 4K. Again, it's just struggling to pull enough data off the onboard because 4K files are gigantic. So see, I'm down here below the trees, and even though I am cruising smooth, it's dark, right? We're looking at a bunch of shadows. And so the shutter speed is not getting so short that it's showing jello. Once I poke out here, you can see things get really bright. The exposure algorithm is about to crank this thing down. So right now, this is probably still like 1/60th of a second. It's going to adjust really quickly here. And now there's potentially going to be some jello. Ready? Play. See, it darkens down. So now the shutter speed is probably like 1/600th of a second, 1/1000th of a second. So we might get a little bit of jello here. Yep. Just a little bit. I don't think you guys are going to be able to see it, but there's just a little bit of jello getting started here on the top of the frame. Boy, is it not bad, though. Not bad at all. Barely any. Flying kind of smooth and slow. You're not going to... Well, you might see it there. Come on. Maybe we'll see it when I cruise these rooftops. But again, I'm pointing the camera towards a bunch of dark stuff, right? A bunch of leaves and green and shadows. And so the shutter speed is now slowing down. It's getting down towards 1/60th of a second, 1/120th of a second, where you're not going to see much jello. And so that's one of the things that you can kind of do to beat jello is to stop. There we go. There's the jello. Look at those squigglies. And so look at the frame, right? We've got a whole bunch of bright ass sky on the top third. We've got a bunch of bright leaves. And so the shutter speed sped up and it showed us a bunch of jello here, but I'm almost, in a way, flying around the jello, right? The jello shows up when you cruise. And so I'm not doing that. I'm flying harder. I'm moving the camera around more, and that will hide the jello. If you're yawing and pitching and rolling, it's really hard to notice the jello. It's when you cruise flat and you fly really cinematic that jello becomes super noticeable. So yeah, we're just kind of flying around it. Little tiny bit of prop wash there. I sat it down right into its own wake. Again, the tune is not super, super, super aggressive. It's pretty good, though. Flies pretty good. Yeah, man. Not much jello. A lot of trees on my street here, though. A lot of shade. A lot of stuff that's not ultra bright sky to kind of look at. And so your mileage is going to vary in terms of jello. If you live somewhere that there are no trees, you are going to get jello with this setup. So limit to 100 ISO, fly as early in the morning and as late in the day as you possibly can, and then just keep it moving, right? Don't just cruise flat. That's when the jello becomes super noticeable. Keep active on the sticks, move it around, and you can smear that jello along with all the other smearing shit flying around. Let's take a look at my tune. Again, the tune that this thing comes with is really good, and you should not screw with it. But if you've already screwed with it, or if you're just obsessed with screwing around with stuff, here's a tune. Here's the tune that you just saw with the biblades and these 1002 14,000 kV motors. And so this is on Betaflight 4.5.1. I don't remember what this comes with out of the box. Here's where I'm at. D-gain slider 1.4, tracking slider 1.1, stick response way down. I don't like super sharp sticks. I think that looks insane. A lot of my rigs, I actually run this even lower, off even on some of them. Come to think of it, this thing feels awful sharp now, so I am actually going to bring this down. Dynamic damping D-max slider 1.2. This will drastically increase the D-gains when it gets into prop wash. I love dynamic damping. Some people hate it. I love it. Drift wobble I-gain slider at 1.1 doesn't really make much of a difference. You could do this and you wouldn't notice a difference. You could do this, you wouldn't notice a difference. 1.1 is just a general setting. Pitch damping and tracking 1.1 on both. The battery runs on the pitch axis, and so there's more weight on the pitch axis, so you want more PID gain on the pitch axis. And then my master multiplier is up at 1.2. That's probably left over from the tune that this thing comes with. Usually I move the master multiplier down, which I'm actually going to do right now. Let me just take a look, though. The D-max, the D on roll is 50. So I'm actually going to move this down. And then I'm going to move this up until I get back to where I was at 50. Not quite there. So I'm going to do 1.6, 1.3. This is... No, I'm actually going to go all the way up here. I'm going to go up to 1.8, 1.5. Because there was a little bit of prop wash, I'm actually going to make this a little bit more aggressive of a tune. So this is going to be the tune that I move forward with, just because I don't like the master multiplier. I prefer to dial it in a little bit more specifically using the top two sliders. The master multiplier slider also moves the feed forward gains up, which I want to adjust these things individually. And so I'm actually now going to bring this up a little bit. I'm going to bring this to 0.4. So yeah, this is the tune that I'm going to go with moving forward on this thing. 1.8, 1.5, 0.4, 1.2, 1.1, 1.1, 1.1, and 1.0. Again, the tune that this thing comes with is totally fine. Don't screw with it. But if you do screw with it, here's how I screwed with it. I-term relax down at a cutoff of 10. Anti-gravity at 6. It's a little bit lower than it usually has. That's interesting. Dynamic damping gain and advance at 30. The feed for these are all driven. Don't mess with these. Leave these alone. Motor output limit 100%. Throttle boost 5, dynamic idle zeroed. I wonder why that's zeroed. I could probably use it, but whatever. It flies fine with it 0. That's fine. VBAT sag compensation 100%. Thrust linearization is turned off. That's weird. I'm going to turn it on. I don't like it at 20, though. I'm going to move it down to 10. Let's save that. Here are my rates, but you should run your own rates. Looks like I've got the throttle expo turned up a little bit at a value of 30. That's a little aggressive. Let me actually move that down to 0.2. The throttle midpoint, when you're flying around outside, this is pretty variable, but I've got it at 0.34. Don't copy that. You need to set that individually. If you don't understand throttle expo, zero it out. Zero this out and zero this out. If you only kind of understand throttle expo, watch my live streams about it and fully understand it, and then you can use it. But if you don't totally understand throttle expo, don't use it because it'll make the situation worse. I guarantee you. And then here's my filter settings. Gyro filter multiplier cranked all the way up. D-term filter multiplier at 1.2. I could probably, I'm going to try to move this up to 1.4. Gyro RPM filter, 1 harmonic, minimum frequency of 100. Dynamic notch filter, 2 notches, Q factor of 300, minimum frequency 100, maximum frequency 800. That's my tune. Don't run it. Just leave it alone. The tune that it comes with is awesome. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I also have crash recovery turned on. The basis for my tune is in a preset. And that preset is 4.5 filter settings for clean build with RPM filtering. I think that this rig might come with 96 kilohertz PWM. Turn that shit down. Turn it down to 48K. You're going to get much better performance. That's all you really need to change in the ESC settings. There you go, friends. That's how you set up the ultimate Mobula7 O4. Maybe change the propellers. Change the motors to something that's higher KV. Change the antenna to an ORT Micro V. Link to where you can get those from my Etsy store in the description. And fly it. The first time you have it apart, do the little camera mod where you run a bead of E6000 around the camera plug. Potentially get longer screws. It looks like I've done longer screws on mine. I sell those on my Etsy store, M1.2 by 14. It'll make this whole thing a little bit stronger. I've also run the camera cable under the AIO. I don't think they do that from the factory. I think I did that just to get these camera I'm sorry, not the camera cables, the FC to VTX cables. I don't like them in between the two boards. Sorry to anyone wearing headphones. Ooh, maybe it's finally just died. I can't wait for, nope, of course not. Yeah. Oh, and then the ELRS antenna. So the ELRS antenna comes sandwiched in between the two boards. That is the worst thing you could possibly do for it. And so what I do is I put a little angle. You can kind of see where it exits from the bottom board there, just barely. And then I run it out and around and up the inside of the canopy. This is the best case solution. It is protected. It is as vertical as possible. And it performs way, way better like this. There you go. That's how you set it up. This is a brilliant quad. This is one of my favorite. I think this is my favorite bind and fly ever. The O4 system is insane. 2S is magic. The tune that it comes with is great. Sure, you could lighten it up a little bit by getting it off of XT30, but why? There's some great batteries available. The Flywoo batteries are amazing. These 350s are great. It's just amazing. This thing is so good. Swap the motors over. which will lighten it up a little bit. You're going to go from 1102 10,000s to 1002 14,000s. I'm going to throw some links down in the description for the motors that I recommend. And yeah, fly the shit out of it, man. So good. So good. Let me get caught up on chat, and then we'll maybe fly around some 1S stuff. Phil Bradley says, thanks for the advice. I might book a 5-hour session if I don't smash the thing with a hammer. Yeah, don't smash it with a hammer. They're always fixable. Rain Squad says, it was cool seeing you at Castle Crash. I didn't kill the 4S from the Whoop House, surprisingly, after the hard thump from the rafters. Good meeting you, brother. That was a hell of a slam. Rain Squad got hung up, I don't know, 25 feet up in the rafters with a 4S kind of like cinematic-ish, I think 2-inch prop. Might have been that T-Motor Tron thing. And in the process of turtle moving out of the rafters, it just hammered into the ground, spit the battery out. It was quite the thunk. And I'm glad to hear that it didn't blow up. Danzilla Terrible says, is it just me or are goggles /04 making the stream skip? I don't know. I wasn't watching. Everyday Bruno says, flying some batteries in a parking lot while listening to the live stream. Very cool. Dia Ein Noodle says, what 2-inch or what parts would you use for a park /forest freestyler which has as much power as possible and is durable? As much power as possible is way too open-ended. You know, that doesn't work. You can't, if you ask that question to anybody and they give you an answer, don't listen to what they're saying, because they either don't care about giving you a good answer or they don't know enough to understand that there is no answer to that question. It's just way too open-ended. I'm a huge fan of these that I've been doing. The easy button is to buy a Mobula7 O4, and it's just insanely good right out of the box. You can throw a couple of things at it to make it a little bit better. You can transplant it into a Mobula 8 frame for more power and more weight. Yeah, there's no answer to that question. Like, you've got to fly a bunch of stuff to figure out what you like the best. Everybody has a different amount of all-up weight and power that they're looking for. And what I can also tell you is that the most power possible is a terrible idea. Building something with the most power possible is building something that is the worst to fly, because your throttle throw has the least possible sensitivity to it. So you move the throttle a little bit and the damn thing goes rocketing off into the trees. You actually want something with as little power as possible for you. You want to find the minimum amount of power that you can stand before the thing is like damn near unflyable or boring to fly. And then you want a little bit more power than that. That is the right way to build a rig, because what you've done there is you've given yourself on the throttle as much resolution as humanly possible. So you're a little bit backwards in the way that you're building this. The most power possible is like the kind of the worst idea. It ends you up with something that is super fun flying in a field where you just go full throttle and it goes rocketing upwards, and then you go, wow. The problem with that is that you do that like 4 times, and then you're like, okay, I'll sell everything now and move on to another hobby, because it's not fun to go rocketing up into the sky more than like 4 times. It's just like, you know, and it's abusive on the gear, and it's just silly, right? You want something that you can actually fly. You can actually like fly it in the forest. You can fly around trees and have a chance at not rocketing into the tree at 400 miles an hour and it blowing up and catching on fire, right? You want something that you can shoot a gap and have some level of control on your way up to the gap, right? Like when you were new as a pilot, the biggest problem with shooting gaps is doing this. You line up that gap. Let's say the gap is the camera lens, and you're like, great, I'm going to shoot that gap. And then the whole way up to the gap, you're fucking doing this. When you're brand new, your throttle control sucks. And as you fly more, your throttle control gets better and better and better. One of the best things that you can do to improve your throttle control is to take power away. Because when you move the throttle a little bit, when it has a ton of power and you're trying to shoot that gap, it drastically misses the gap. The less power it has when you move the throttle a little bit, you might just only be about to miss the gap by a little bit, and then you can bring it down and then bring it back in the way. Bring it back in line. So, yeah. Especially with small builds like 1S, 2S, loads of power is not the answer. More power than a lot of the bind and flies, sure. This is not one of them, though. This is a bind and fly that comes with a really solid amount of power. And so, yeah. Flying in the woods, it's going to be hard. There's going to be scraggle. There's going to be branches. There's going to be tree trunks and shit. You don't want all the power you can possibly get. You want a reasonable amount of power. What does that mean? That's different for everybody. You've got to find a starting place, and then you've got to fly it, and you've got to think, and you've got to analyze your footage, and you've got to like be real with yourself and go like, hey, is this too little power? Is this too much power? Can I, if it's too little power, can I fly around the fact that it has too little power? Because the fact that it has too little power means that I have better throttle resolution. And my flight footage will literally look better, because your flight footage is not going to be you bouncing up and down like an idiot the entire time, right? It looks terrible. Like, I can tell how many years someone's been flying within about 15 seconds of watching their flight footage by just looking at how much they're bouncing up and down. Brand new pilots bounce up and down like they're on drugs. 6 months into the game, you're still doing it, but it's not nearly as bad. A year, 2 years, 3 years in, you've started to really lock that down, but like at the bottom of a dive, you'll bounce up. 10 years in, hopefully, you hit the bottom of a dive, and it's like you hit a brick wall, and then you flatten perfectly out. Unless you're flying a rig that you're not used to, which is something that I run into a lot. But like if I put 10 batteries in a row through the same build, and I do a bunch of dives, at the bottom of the dive, it's fucking locked. And it looks amazing because I try to hit like an inch above the pavement. And so, yeah, there you go. CH3 says, feed forward averaging off if you're on ELRS, Mark Spatz said. Feed forward averaging, what the hell is that? Where is that? Is that that strikes me as something in the CLI? I run my feed forward super low, and so that probably is not going to affect me, but that's interesting. Where's that at? Die Noodle says, I'm looking for something that can fly close to 5-inch spots, but don't allow to fly large quads because too loud or too close to people. I mainly fly 5-inch racers. That's why I want power. So trying to build something that's 2S or 2 inches that flies like a 5-inch is impossible. 5-inch rigs have a shitload of mass, and so nothing will fly like a 5-inch other than a 5-inch. A lot of times when people say flies like a 5-inch, what they mean is that it flies good. It has good response time. It has half decent power to weight ratio. If that's what you mean, this bind and fly is a great example of that. So something along these veins is a great example of that. 1002 motor, 14,000 kV, 2S, on these ultralight biblades will give you great response time and really decent power. In my opinion, you might think this has no power and flies like shit. I have no idea. There's no way I can figure that out. Which is why, like, you got to dive in, you got to buy or build something, and then that's your barometer, and that's how you figure out, do I want more or do I want less? CH3FPV says, in the PID tuning tab, upper right. Shit, I want to look at it now. There we go. Feed forward averaging, eh? Let's see. So yeah, man, I wish I could give you a better answer to that question. But again, anybody that doesn't give you the answer that I just gave you to that question doesn't know what they're talking about, or they just don't care. And they're just randomly telling you shit. That what they're doing is they're telling you what they like. And that doesn't affect you in any way. Averaging. Feedforward averaging. 2-point versus off. Feedforward averaging takes the average of the last 2 or 3 feedforward steps. This smooths the feedforward trace but adds some delay. It is most effective where there is sequential up and down jitter in the signal, which is common with faster RC links. 2-point averaging is needed for 500 Hz links and noisy 250 Hz links, or for cinematic HD flying. Crossfire before, old school Crossfire needs 3-point averaging, Jesus, in 150 Hz mode. So if you want less latency, you're going to move this to off. 2-point is probably pretty safe, it sounds like. And with ELRS at 5, so here's the deal. ELRS is a very fat, your control link is not smooth. It is jumps, it's steps. Crossfire is a lot of these little steps. 500 Hertz is 500 a second. 250 Hertz is 250 a second. And so what can sometimes happen is the trace can come in with a step that's too big, and then it can even step down and then back up. And so there's some erraticness. It does, like, if you ramp up the throttle smoothly, it's not going to come in a perfect smooth trace. It's going to be these little jumps. And so the averaging set to 2-point sounds like if you're, so I'm on 250 Hertz, right? 250 per second. So every 2 steps, it's going to average it. So instead of 250 Hertz, I'm kind of only getting 175 Hertz. That's still really fast. And again, it's averaging. So you're not actually only getting 175 Hertz. You're still getting 250 Hertz. But there could be a scenario where it goes the wrong way, and you get in one 175th of a second, you might get the wrong trace in there. I'm going to leave it on 2-point averaging, but that's interesting. Spats is talking about it. Which one of Spats' videos was he talking about it in? Jason Levin says, can you recommend a good STL file for an O4 lite whoop canopy that protects the board well? Nope. TPU is never going to be the right solution, in my opinion, for a tiny whoop canopy. It is always going to be too flexible and too heavy, and you're going to break AIOs or you're going to break cameras. You want the this canopy here or the adjustable up tilt version of it. You want a molded canopy. I haven't tried any of the TPU canopies. I'm really worried to try them, but I'm going to try my damnedest. That they are only going on, they're going to be really heavy. They are only going on this setup once it's in this 2-inch frame, and I'm going to fly this thing as much as I can like a Cinewhoop. I am still going to freestyle it, but I'm not going to freestyle it hardcore close to shit and close to the ground where I bash the shit out of it, because I don't want to kill another O4 Lite. That's the future of this thing. Tonight, tomorrow, this rig is getting pulled apart and it's getting dropped into this frame. Anybody that's desperate for these iFlight Defender 1002 14,000 kV motors, there's a chance I'll sell them. Probably not, though. I will probably just keep this frame and motors together in case I want to dive back into this and do some more comparisons. But yeah, this thing is getting transplanted into a Mobula 8 frame. Noodle says, okay, thank you. Maybe you can give me one last tip. In which situation would you go for a 75mm over bigger whoop? And when would you choose something like the Happy Model baseline? The size of the build. Okay. 75 versus 85. 75 is going to be lighter and more maneuverable. 85 is going to be heavier with more power. And then going to a Happy Model baseline, which is a toothpick versus tiny whoop, is Toothpick is going to be more efficient and faster, but it's going to be way more slidey. And so the whoop is going to be more floaty and less slidey because of the aerodynamic drag of the whoop frame. This is also going to be much more crashable, because you crash into something, maybe it just bounces off. A toothpick, the motor is going to stall out every single time you crash into something. Then it's going to fall to the ground. And then if there's one stick even near it, it's not going to be able to push that stick out of the way. You're going to have to take the walk of shame. Tiny whoop framed builds, they tend to fall down. You can turtle mode it over. You might have to wiggle it a couple times so you could take it back off. I have really fallen out of love with toothpicks in scenarios where there's any chance of you crashing. If you just want to fly up and down your street, or if you want to fly in an open field, sure, toothpicks are fine. Unless you want to do like hardcore spang shit in that open field where you're going to crash, and then you're going to have to take the walk of shame over and over and over and over and over again every single time you crash. It's fucking maddening. The tiny whoop framed setups, their ability to take back off after crashes, for me, that's huge. That lets me fly a lot in a short period of time. Toothpicks, they let me fly a little in a large amount of time. If I've got like 2 or 3 hours to fly, okay, a toothpick will work. I'm going to get a ton of exercise. I'm going to walk and walk and walk and walk and walk, and it's going to be a partially FPV, partially exercise day. If that's what you want to do, awesome. If that's not what you want to do, this is the answer. The amount of time that I spend flying versus walking is like ass opposite ends of the spectrum. And it makes a huge difference for me because I don't have a ton of time to fly anymore. I spend a lot of time trying to do this as a full-time business. I spend a lot of time with family stuff. And so the window of opportunity for actual amount of time that I can fly is not what it once was when I was living basically the single life in an apartment. I used to have 3 or 4 hours to piss away damn near every day on just flying. And I could fly lots of open prop stuff. I could fly lots of stuff that would crash really hard and break. I had a lot of that extra time. If you don't have that extra time, tiny whoops are the answer, yo. They really are. Indoors and outdoors. It lets you fly more instead of repairing and chasing the quad down more. Jan says, will you use Flywoo wide angle lens? I will not. I talked for about 10 minutes about that earlier on the live stream. CH3FPV says, I'm planning to go digital after almost 7 years. Can you say the Mobula 8 setup again with bigger motors? I think what you mean is that the setup that I'm about to do is I'm going to take this Mobula7 O4, I'm going to take the whole center section out, and I'm going to drop it into what amounts to a Mobula 8. If you buy a Mobula 8, it comes with this Mobula 8 frame, and it comes with these 1103 11,000 kV motors, and then these aren't the props you want. You want the Gemfan tri-blade props. Hopefully that's what you're looking for. All right, I got 4 minutes. Let's fly 2 batteries. We are gonna fly BT 2.0 batteries because I don't have any NX69s charged. Hey, I'm about to fart around with this build. This is the I did not bring this to Castle Crash because I didn't want to break it. This is my Mobula 6 2024 version 2 with the motor plugs, swapped into a Meteor 65 Pro frame with Weebleed FPV 0702 32,500 kV motors with the 1.5mm motor shafts and the HQ 1.4 by, I forget the pitch, by 3 tri-blades. This is a really cool setup because it has the strong motor shafts, the bigger frame, the bigger props. This is really fun to fly. It lacks a little bit of response time. Like it feels a little bit lazy in the air because of the bigger propellers, but the bigger frame, the bigger propellers make it kind of floaty, and it's an interesting rig to fly. I don't like it better than the 1.2 inch rigs, but it's fun in its own kind of way. And so let's put a couple batteries through it. Because I'm about to do a live stream comparing this setup with the same motors, but biblades. I've got the same exact Weebleed 0702 32,500 kV motors, but with 1mm motor shafts, and that lets you use the Gemfan 35mm S biblades, and I think I'm going to like it better in this setup, because these 0702 motors that are on here don't have quite enough grunt to give a good response time with these tri-blades. But maybe not. Maybe I won't like it better with the biblades. It's really cool the way that it's set up right now because it's indestructible. Good thing, too, because I can't fly worth a shit. Hey, let's crash it a lot. Actually, let's go upstairs while the battery's fully charged. And do a full room power loop. So still good power. But boy, the grip. See how it just stops? Like I change direction and it just stops. I would rather have... See that? It doesn't like... Whoa, what the hell's that? I'm getting all kinds of weird interference. I think that's router interference, isn't it? Those distinct horizontal lines. That's interesting. Yeah, this is ultra grippy. It's floaty, but it's also very grippy. Decent power though. Ugh. Come on now. Let me fly. God damn it. Why not go for the massive front flip through all 4 gates? Okay. I wish I could say that I planned that, but I did not. Very fun to fly. Very, like, slow. You see how slow it is? Like, it'll go fast if I put the nose down. It'll go fast, but when you're just kind of cruising it around, it's nice and slow. Because the frame is gigantic, the propellers are gigantic. But then it's also light enough. Like, if you want something bigger than a regular 65 with 1.2 inch props inside the house, this is absolutely the way to go. Trying to go all the way up to 1.6 inch props is a fool's errand. It becomes way too heavy. The 0702s are the motors that you want inside the house. They're so much lighter. It leaves you with something that's so much floatier. It's just really, really nice. Completely missed that hanging gate. Isn't that cool how it just kind of like slowly cruises around the room? Can you guys tell? But again, the only problem is the response time. And I think I have the PID tune cranked way up on this thing. Let's take a quick look, actually. Let's have a look. Oh, I know why this thing sucks upstairs. It's because it has a True RC singularity antenna right above the AIO. And so the AIO is blocking a lot of the signal when I fly up above myself with this thing. Oh, come on, Betaflight. Don't be a fucking asshole. Really? Okay, there we go. All right, so let's see. First, I want to look at what gyro it's got. So it's got a regular gyro. It doesn't have a BMI 270. I don't know why I went into there. I wanted to go into here. Yeah, I got the PID tune pretty cranked, 1.6, 1.3. Why is thrust linear turned off on all these builds? Motor output limit. Oh man, I have some weird settings on this thing. Hold on. Let's clean this up a little bit. Let me turn I'm going to turn the feed forward up. That'll help a little bit with how dead it sort of feels. It doesn't feel dead though. It just feels a little sloppy. Rates are good. The filters like. Let's try pulling a little bit of latency out in the filters. What do you say? Notches are pretty aggressive. Why is the yaw low pass filter not turned on? This thing has got all kinds of wacky shit going on. All right, let's see how that is. I removed a little bit of latency in the tune. This dynamic notch filter is really aggressive already. Let's see how this is. Put another battery through this guy. Or girl, you know. Gender is a construct. Here we go. Get in there, you. Oh my god, this battery lead is like just barely long enough for this. Okay, so I cranked the feed forward up a good chunk, and I killed some of the filter latency. I didn't remove too much filtering. That's nice. Yeah, I mean, it still feels lazy. There is a little bit more. Nah, the filtering is. I did take a little too much filtering out. So there is a little bit more of an initial attack from the feed forward, but it's then lazy because I'm asking these 702s to turn a pretty heavy propeller. Holy hell. Dong! He goes into the vent. Oh my god, really? I meant that. Nope. I meant that too. I meant all of this. There we go. Oh god, look at those two thick legs. Oh, come on, really? How did that hit? Oh, you son of a bitch, you. Hey, I'm selling a 1S 75mm walk snail rig. If anybody's interested, you let me know. You get first crack at a bunch of batteries, a case. Again, not on purpose, but cool that it happened. Jesus. Well, the changes that I made haven't made me any better of a pilot. That's a shame. Still looking for that Betaflight setting. Boy, did I ever miss this hanging gate. Come on. There we go. There it is. Ah! I'm getting a lot of really strange video interference with this thing. What's happening, VTX? Are you... Oh, so the VTX table is wrong. See how it says 14 up there? R8, 5917, star 14? The VTX table is wrong. Watch what happens when I go up to 100. That 14 will change to 20. Yeah, see, it's... VTX table is jacked up. Let's go to race. Yeah, the VTX table full-blown doesn't work. Because right now it's on pit mode, but I can still see. Let's go to 0. Yeah, see, so the VTX table's broken. So I gotta fix that. That's why I'm getting weird results here. It's changing, but it's not changing with the right values. It's probably at 25 million watts. Man, still missing that. Still missed that hanging gate. No! Runtime ain't half bad either. 2 minutes and 45. There you go, friends. That's what I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed. Here comes some more, another battery from Castle Crash with regular old 1.2 inch prop, 65 millimeter motor to motor, 1S builds. CiottiFPV.com. If you want to keep learning, support me. I need it. Join my Patreon. That's the best possible way that you can support me. Buy yourself something that helps too. Replace all of your bookmarks with my affiliate links. Let's keep rocking on into the free world, yo. Although the world, our world here in America is becoming a lot less free every single day. Thanks, Drumpf. Love you guys. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. We'll do something else fun. Oh no, I quit out of INA. What a jackass. HE026 though. That'll be this one. All right, see you guys tomorrow night.